The text you see behind me is what sold me on covering the Brian Walsh case. Brian Walsh pled guilty in federal court on 3 fraud charges for selling counterfeit Andy Warhol artwork. Then, while on house arrest, awaiting the sentencing on the Andy Warhol case, Ana Walsh disappeared, and Brian Walsh got charged with her murder. Now, he got 37 months for that Andy Warhol case, and he has since also pled guilty to willfully misleading the police in the Ana Walsh case, which is up to 10 years, and dismemberment in the Ana Walsh case, which is up to 3. Weird numbers there, I must say. His family also got him charged for taking things from his late father's estate, but they ended up dropping those charges because obviously there's not going to be anything to recover. He's going to be in prison. There's no money making for him. It's a waste of time. But with all of that, Brian Walsh did not plead guilty to the charge of murder. And that's what brings us to the trial. Now, what made me really excited to watch this trial is how bad a criminal he seems to be. I have heard pieces over time about what he Googled. The ransom email, which is what is behind me, and he bought supplies from multiple stores that were, the supplies were for the crime. He did it while wearing the ankle monitor and keeping the receipts. So much more, but honestly, I don't have the full picture, which makes, to me, the trial even more exciting. With what I have been reading, it is amazing he made it to over the age of 45 without spending the rest of his life behind bars, but we might see that change now. I really hope he testifies because, oh boy, I would love to see what the news story is. I do want to apologize if my eyes look terrible. They are. I am dealing with the worst dry eye I have ever had, and I am currently trying everything I can to get through this because I want to cover this case. If you are on mobile, you might see a hype option. If you do, hype the video. It helps push them out, just like a like or a comment does. So if you enjoy the content, that's another way you can support. Now, this trial begins, like all of them, with talk of some motions. The defense wanted to exclude evidence about a hole in the ceiling at the Walsh residence, and they called an email about it a red herring that could be misleading to the jury. And the state says they wanted to include it to show that this was an honest investigation and it was a tip, and the judge decided the evidence is going to be allowed. So we're going to get to see whatever this tip is about it. There's more about the hole. We actually see the hole if you watch the trial. There's talk of the state wanting to mention a photo in their opening, and the defense says it's hearsay, it's in the text messages, the state wants admitted, but the defense objects to, and then there's an issue with finding the actual page numbers being discussed. It will be dealt with down the line. Little spoiler, this does not get figured out by the end of the day, it seems, and the judge is still asking questions right at the very end, so that is a little bit of a mess, I gotta say. The state wants to stop the defense of making any mention of his guilty plea to the dismemberment and lying to police. The defense says it isn't planning to use it in the opening that he took the plea, so again, this got pushed off without a ruling. I feel like if I was the defense, I would have pushed to know what's going on. Like, I would want to know, can we mention this down the line? Because maybe you're going to change some of the wording and questioning you're going to do if you can't follow that up later. I mean, I don't know. I would have pressed for it right now, but the defense did not do that. The judge seemed open to doing it, and the defense didn't push. They bring in police and they recognize them in the court, so they formally know they have to appear. This is not with like the jury there. They're just like brought the police officers in. There's talk of stipulations from the state, with Richard Walker, DNA samples, authentication of records, and of his federal prosecution. Like that's all going to be stipulated to. The defense asks if sentencing for his guilty plea is today. Why is no one prepared? I'm sorry? They came in and asked, "Oh, is the sentencing for our client today?" Because remember, he pled guilty to 2 charges. Um, the state says the victim impact statement isn't in yet, and if either party wants it sooner, she can give a date or just do it all at the same time. Didn't seem to get, resolved again, of course. That's going to be a theme, isn't it? Every trial seems to have a theme. That's probably going to be the theme. So they bring in the jury and go through the basic instructions and make sure they follow the orders. They read the indictment and explanation of the trial process, same as always. And the state's opening begins. So the state says that Teresa Marchese, if I get the names wrong, I'm sorry, works in DC and found out that a co-worker's husband was looking for his wife. January 4th, 2023. It was Brian Walsh looking for Ana Walshe. She knew where Ana lived in DC and knew that Brian lived in another state. After talking to Brian, Teresa went to Ana's house and got into the garage using a code that Brian gave her, but the door from the garage to the home was locked. She told Brian she was going to bring in the company's head of security, an ex-Secret Service agent. Now, once the head of security got involved, according to her, Brian's demeanor changed. The head of security had to calm him down. Brian Walsh repeated the story he told Teresa. Ana Walsh left home on January 1st to come to work. And then it was an emergency. So she had to leave suddenly. There's a work emergency. The type of thing that work might know about, but that's what he's going with. The head of security tells Brian he needs to call the local police in Massachusetts, where he's at, where she went missing at. The head of security works with DC police to get access to the home, and Ana wasn't there. Head of security also called the police where Brian lives and reported her missing. That's the first time the police were told that she was missing. Brian didn't call them. This was January 4th. Nobody had seen her since January 1st, early in the morning. They will prove Brian Walsh guilty of the premeditated murder of Ana Walsh. The evidence will come in 2 forms. Tangible, with photos of the home, video from stores, her banking records. You will also see objects like a Tyvek suit. Tyvek suit, if you don't know what that is kind of like a full-body painter's type suit. A hatchet, a hacksaw. In addition to objects, you'll hear from witnesses, her friends and colleagues. You will find out she was a Serbian immigrant who began working in hotels and transitioned to real estate. She got her dream job in 2022 and bought a townhouse in DC and expected her family to come live there. But Brian and the children stayed in Massachusetts. The reason being, Brian had previously pled guilty to fraud in a federal courthouse. So now the jury knows about his fraud. He wasn't sentenced yet, but he was accused of owing up to $400,000 in restitution. Ana was the breadwinner. Ana bought the townhouse from a real estate agent, William Fastow. They became friends. The friendship became romantic. That carried on until November of 2022 when Ana had to visit her sick mother in Serbia. He even joined her part way on the trip all the way to Dublin. Ana missed Thanksgiving with Brian, the kids. On Christmas Eve, she went out to dinner with William, with another couple. Then she spent the night with William. She couldn't get a flight and had to drive home, missing most of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with Brian and the kids. December 29th, Ana went to dinner with a friend. She was tired and emotional. She was going to stay with her family until January 3rd. Ana was in a ballet class. A person who was in a nail salon with her on Christmas Eve will testify. Another man will testify who went to the Walsh residence for dinner on New Year's Eve. They were looking forward to the new year. Brian claimed to have lost his phone, but he felt free. No mention of a work emergency forcing Ana to DC early that morning. Then on January 4th, after Ana was reported missing, the police sent an officer to speak with Brian Walsh. Brian informed him Ana left January 1st, early in the morning, and went to the airport. Flew to DC for work emergency. He gave them Anna's phone number, gave Anna's description. He hadn't heard from her. The police ping her phone and try to find it. Anyway, she took a trip to the airport. The last time her phone accessed the tower was actually January 2nd at the area around the Walsh home. And I have to take a moment here. So if we are under the assumption that she died on the 1st, that ping, how's her phone still at the house? How did it ping? Is Brian dumb enough to have turned her phone on? It's kind of the question. I'm going to say, give you a little spoiler, yes. We're going to hear quite a bit. Detectives also interviewed Brian Walsh with a recording later that day, and you'll hear it. Oh boy, will you hear it. Talk of issues with his federal case. Brian described Ana was wearing on the 5th, and they searched the woods, brought in lots of resources. Brian was talked to on the 5th, 7th, and 8th. Brian said they had a happy marriage. No knowledge of an affair. Ana had a dream job. Brian said he owed over $400,000 in restitution. He might have to go to jail. Brian told the police that her job made her miss Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Her mom made her miss Thanksgiving. She said she was embarrassed with him trying to find her on Christmas. Ana Walsh had over $400,000 in her bank account and over $1 million in life insurance with Brian Walsh as the beneficiary. Digital forensic experts will testify on Christmas Day. When Ana was driving up from D.C., Brian was looking up Mr. Fasto's name. So Brian knows the name of the man that she's sleeping with or spending the night with. The MacBook, using Brian's ID, looked up the best strategies to divorce for a man. Best state to divorce for a man. Washington, D.C. divorce laws. December 29th, Brian's phone was looking up buildings that Ana handled and emergencies she'd handled in the past. The internet history for the MacBook on January 1st at 4:54 a.m. Best way to dispose of a body. Yeah. Similar websites for more than an hour. 6:24 a.m. Same day. How long for someone missing to inherit? I'm assuming that's inherit, but they definitely said inherit, so I'm assuming he just typed inherit. How long missing to be dead? Can you throw away body parts? At 9:43 a.m., he asked, how long does DNA last? An article about, is it possible to clean DNA off a knife? 30 minutes later, research disposable cell phones. You're a little late, buddy. At 10:28 a.m., I am the user of my wife's credit card and she is missing. 11:28 a.m., best way to dispose of body parts after a murder. Websites on cleaning blood. Websites on if you should throw away crime scene clothes or wash them. One site used the title, you want to get away with murder, use a special detergent. This activity continued into January 2nd. How long does Lowe's keep security footage? How to saw a body. How to dismember a body. Can you be charged with murder without a body? Can you identify a body with broken teeth? And looked up apartment complexes. Brian Walsh told detectives his phone was missing until January 2nd, 2023. They found it during its time. It had been connected to a power source and unlocked 4 times between January 1st and when it was found. The location data showed it remained in the Walsh residence until January 2nd, 2023. But there was another cell phone that belonged to one of the children. That phone showed on January 1st that it went to Walgreens, a liquor store near Brian Walsh's mother's home, a CVS, a Lowe's, a Stop and Shop. You will see the surveillance footage. Walgreens, a man using a credit card to buy bandages and antibiotics. CVS, a man now wearing a mask buys hydrogen peroxide using cash. Stop and Shop, you see ammonia bought with cash. The Lowe's buys several items costing over $400, including a Tyvek suit, cutting instruments, cell phone data. Shows a home goods, shows them going to a Home Goods on one phone and then a Home Depot on another. Why? To buy scented candles and an area rug and to buy more cleaning supplies. On January 3rd, Brian's phone went to apartment complexes and you will see surveillance of someone going to the dumpster. January 5th, by the dumpsters in a trash compactor near where Brian's mother lives before he was interviewed by police. January 9th, police went to those dumpsters and they were searched and they found clothes and a COVID vaccination card with on his name. Rugs, a Tyvek suit, a hammer, shears, hatchet, hacksaw. They were brought to the lab and the DNA matched Ana and Brian both on the Tyvek suit. Ana's DNA was on the rugs and the hatchet and the hacksaw. Ana was home alive with her husband the morning of January 1st. She hasn't been seen, her accounts haven't been accessed, and her body hasn't been found. And then the defense is up. Brian Walsh lied to the police. He lied to them on January 4th, lied on January 5th, lied to them on the 7th. Brian Walsh went to Lowe's and Home Depot to buy tools. This is the defense, mind you. Brian Walsh, about 4:54 a.m., began a frantic and tragic search. You will hear those searches evolved with how to dispose of a body and went even darker. As he wrestled with the fact that Ana Walsh was dead. That evidence will be hard to understand, but it's true. And at this point, I'm sitting there and I'm going, what is the angle, right? On January 1st, after the friend left early in the morning, Ana and Brian continued to celebrate the New Year's. They went to the bedroom. You will hear evidence. Brian went back downstairs to clean the kitchen. Then he looked at his email. They returned to the bedroom intending nothing more than to crawl into bed with Ana Walsh. When getting into bed, he sensed something was wrong. Ana didn't respond to the nudges he gave her. Ana rolled off the bed. You will hear evidence he is panicking and doesn't understand. It didn't make sense to him. It didn't make sense how she is suddenly dead. That gave me pause. Also, who's testifying to these things? Brian? Is Brian going to get on the stand and say these things? We might be getting him testifying. But let's continue. You will hear evidence in this case of sudden unexplained death. Yes, everyone. They're going with, she just died. You will hear evidence it is real and it happens. It's known in the medical community. You'll hear about it. Brian Walsh and Ana Walsh loved each other, but stress from the federal case, there was stress due to the commute. Brian Walsh experienced that stress too. Yes, there was an affair. An affair doesn't make someone a terrible person. So they want to bring up the affair, but they know that if they focus on it, it's just going to make him sound guilty. So they're going that route, right? Ana Walsh hid the affair from her friends. Ana had no intentions to tell Brian. Ana would be devastated if Brian knew about the affair, but Brian knew. She is a beautiful woman, and she told Brian she had a crush, and Brian trusted her when she said that. Ana Walsh told her friends she wished Brian would be jealous. There were no financial problems. They had whole life insurance policies on their sons. Brian Walsh's mother was paying the rent. That is weird, though, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's no issues with money, but his mom's paying the rent. They had investment property. Ana said, I want people to see the Brian that I know. Ana called Brian her best friend. 7 days before their death, Ana was sending him investment properties they could buy. They'd actually just sold an investment property. Ana Walsh wanted a Porsche, and Brian sent her links to some. More investments talk. They were talking about the future. Photos of her playing with the boys signed up with Love You were sent. Brian was cooking on New Year's and they talked about the future. They signed the champagne box. Nothing was more important than their boys. The federal case was stressful and Brian did do that single search. Ana talked about her friends about her divorce to maintain financial assets due to a possible $400,000 due. Brian didn't think anyone would believe that Ana died suddenly. They would think he did it. And what would happen to his boys? He lied to hang on to his boys. Brian would never ever think about killing anyone. And there's a break at this point. And the thing is, let's say the defense is right. She just suddenly dies. You go to bed, your husband, boyfriend, wife, whatever, is dead. Is your first response to look up how to get away with murder? And how long does blood evidence last? And then later get materials to cut up a body? Feel like that wouldn't be what I do, right? State calls their first witness. I'm probably gonna get the name wrong. Harrison Schmidt. He is a sergeant in the police department. They go through his credentials. He was the lead investigator into Ana Walshe case. He interviewed Brian Walsh. His children were eating McDonald's when he arrives. Photos are shown with the house, the inside of the house. They show the dog. They play the interview audio. Okay. Interview audio is a whole thing today. It's bad. And by bad, I mean it's boring and worthless. We know he's lying. It's the same thing we've already heard, just drawn out. It triggers me. Same story we heard multiple times, this time just with children talking in the background. He talks of Anna sending photos, talk of text, talks of her using an Uber or Lyft, talks of her travel habits. Nothing was posted on her social media. She doesn't turn her phone off. This is uncut. There's a lot of extra stuff. It goes all the way back to how they met, right? Talk of life. After it ended, the sergeant answered question. The children were aged at the time 2, 4, and 6. Oldest child produced an iPad, and Brian said 121212, and that was the code to the iPad. The middle child brought up some glasses. They show photos of ladies' glasses, so he brought up apparently his mother's glasses. He showed the JetBlue app trip from DC to Boston. They show more interior photos. There's another crime that took place in this house. There are leopard print stairs. It's another crime. That went to a bedroom. A drawer in the defendant's bedroom has sheetrock from the ceiling, and you can see a hole in the wall. The defense objects, and we just continue because the judge isn't handling that right now, I guess. Everything's pushed off. They didn't go into the attic that night. Lots of shots around the house. They look in around the Volvo. The trunk portion was covered in plastic sheeting. There was a maple seed inside, not a leaf. Back at the station, Passport was then flagged and set up to do a walk through the DC house, called on his sister. First, the department went to the house to scrape the pool, and nothing was recovered. On the 5th, they created a missing persons bulletin and started contacting friends and family. They searched around the house with a canine, checked for Amtrak travel, called cabs and rideshare companies. They went back to the house. Nanny was leaving when they arrived. His mother was there. And then they play another interview. He goes back through his day on the 1st, talks of finding his phone, explaining her job. They haven't talked about separating. He couldn't imagine them separating. And then they pause everything so the jurors can have lunch. There's talk of passing out blank calendars to the jurors. I'm assuming so they can write their own timeline. We're back. Talk of Anna working all the time. Talk of her friends. Talk of talking to her friends. Talk of her phone. Talk of her previous marriage. He's laughing, and these are creepy. That's really the thing that's going to, I think, stick in everyone's mind. No physical abuse. They asked for his phone. They would like to take a download. He doesn't want to do it, it seems like. And he wants his phone to call certain people. Skipped a lot of this. I'm skipping over most of the interviews because they're lies. They're admitted lies. And most of it isn't actually relevant unless it's brought up later, right? They'll bring it up later in the trial if it mattered. Most of this is just lies, right? It's just lies. After they talked to the witness, in the attic, they went up and it was unfinished. There's nothing in it. There was what appeared to be a rug and a trash bag in the basement, but they didn't open it. Considering a rug was then found later with blood on it, sounds like a bad idea. They went through the Volvo. They found a receipt and a cell phone, the oldest son's cell phone, the January 4th Lowe's receipt. Brian asked if he should get a PR person or talk to the media. He said Ana sometimes carried large sums of cash. They did canvassing looking for surveillance footage. There was a press conference and they collected some digital devices from Brian, so they did turn things over. They spoke to him on the 6th on the phone and then again on the 7th in his home to give him back his digital devices. Another audio interview, this time from the 7th. Brian Walsh's attorney is there, talk of how he communicates with Ana. They talk about financial accounts, visiting his mom, which he claimed to have gotten lost at one point while doing. They end the court for the day. Like, the interviews are really bad, really boring. The chat rooms watching the case slowed down because it's practically worthless. I think it's practically worthless to the jury. I think it's practically worthless to everyone. I think it's more, we have it, we're going to put it in its entirety, it's out there, not have an appellate issue, whatever. It just more like they can go back and say he lied here, 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 here. Why would you believe him now when he claims she suddenly died, right? There's talk of weather issues because this is in Massachusetts and there's a storm coming. The state says they have 40 minutes of interviews to play, 40 minutes of the current witness, then a trooper for some digital evidence, another half dozen witnesses if they go fast tomorrow, I guess. But tomorrow might be cut short due to snow. The state says they're actually ahead of pace, which is amazing. How is the state ahead of pace when basically all they've done is play audio that is a predetermined length? I don't know. The judge is going to review some things because remember, everything got pushed down the road for whatever reason and they end for the day. Hopefully, this video saves you the need to listen to those audio recordings. They are bad. They are, at certain points, hard to hear, in my opinion. They aren't relevant. Honestly, we know he lied. He admits he lied. It's not like a normal case, right? Where they, like, still trying to play by that story. I guess we'll see how day 2 goes. I'm hoping my eye gets better so I can feel better while covering it. I had to cut this so many times to try, like, put drops in my eyes and stuff. I think it's just the lack of humidity in the house. It's just killing me, and I need to adjust. But thank you all, and I will see you in the next video.